Alien girl asked every human. Same question, are you my daddy? Ethan Cross hunched over a rusted engine, his scarred hands twisting a wrench with quiet precision. The workshop smelled of metal and oil, a familiar tang in the air. Iron Haven, a gritty industrial colony, orbited a depleted asteroid belt. Dim lights flickered above, casting jagged shadows. He tightened a bolt, feeling the stubborn resistance yield. Beyond the workshop's grimy windows, the colony thrummed with life. 50,000 miners and mechanics filled its corridors, their shouts blending with the hum of machinery. Mining lasers carved into rocky voids, their distant glow painting the sky. Ethan glanced outside, watching ore carts trundle past. Survival demanded focus, not distraction. His mind drifted briefly to another time. Phantom Ace, they once called him, a pilot unmatched in brutal campaigns. Guilt stirred deep within, tied to memories of child experiments he'd witnessed. The images lingered, sharp and unwanted. He shoved them aside, gripping the wrench tighter. The present was all that mattered now. A soft shuffle broke his thoughts. Lyra, an 8-year-old with silver hair and striking purple eyes, slipped into the workshop. Her fine dress, embroidered with delicate threads, looked out of place amid the grease and tools. She wandered toward a half-assembled thruster, her small fingers brushing its surface. Curiosity lit her face as she studied the tangled wires. Ethan paused, wiping oil from his hands. Lyra turned to him, her gaze direct. "Are you my father?" Her voice, soft but clear, sliced through the mechanical hum. Surprise flickered across his face. He set the rag down, leaning back slightly. "Kid, you're in the wrong place." His tone carried a sarcastic edge, sharp but not unkind. "This isn't a family reunion." Lyra stepped closer, undeterred. "You smell safe," she said, tilting her head, "like a machine with a new oil change." The words hung there, strange yet profound, hinting at something beyond a child's whimsy. Ethan's brow furrowed. What was this girl? A low rumble interrupted them. Outside, a sleek corporate shuttle touched down, kicking up dust in the artificial gravity. Clara Veyron emerged, her nanofiber suit gleaming under the harsh lights. As head of the mining corporation, she controlled 12 star systems in the belt. Her presence demanded attention, every step exuding authority. She entered the workshop swiftly, her sharp eyes scanning the space. They settled on Lyra, then flicked to Ethan. "I need your help," she said, her voice urgent but controlled. "Watch Lyra for a few days." She paused, her composure faltering slightly. "She has a neurological disease. It's dangerous." The words were measured, but her eyes betrayed a mother's quiet desperation. Ethan crossed his arms, skepticism etched on his face. "Why me?" He nodded at her suit, its sleek design screaming wealth. Clara's gaze softened, just for a moment. "She trusts you," she said. "I don't know why, but she does." Her tone carried a faint crack, barely noticeable. From Clara's perspective, as she glanced back at her shuttle, a weight settled in her chest. The corporate board watched her every move, their scrutiny relentless. Power came at a cost, and Lyra was her vulnerability. She straightened, masking the fear. This mechanic was her only option now. Ethan rubbed his neck, exhaling heavily. "Fine," he muttered, the word heavy with reluctance. "A few days, that's it." He cleared a corner of his workbench, piling old rags into a makeshift bed. Lyra climbed up, her small form curling under a worn blanket. The workshop's gritty air seemed to soften around her. Night settled over Iron Haven, the artificial lights dimming to a faint glow. Ethan worked late, his tools clinking softly. Lyra slept nearby, her breathing steady and calm. He glanced at her, questions stirring in his mind. Who was this girl? Why did she feel so familiar? He let the thoughts fade, focusing on the engine. Morning broke with the colony's usual clamor. Ethan brewed synthetic coffee, its bitter taste grounding him. Lyra stirred, rubbing her eyes as she sat up. She watched him tinker, her purple eyes bright with interest. He handed her a small tool. Hold this, he said, his voice gruff but patient. She grasped it eagerly, her hands steady despite her frailty. Outside, miners began their shifts, the hum of lasers filling the air. The workshop smelled of fresh welds, a sharp contrast to the colony's dust. Lyra's presence shifted something in Ethan, though he didn't name it. The rhythm of their morning flowed quietly, connections forming in the spaces between words. Change lingered, subtle but undeniable, as Iron Haven's pulse carried on. The shuttle hummed softly, cutting through Iron Haven's foggy haze. Ethan Cross gripped the controls, his scarred hands steady despite the patchwork craft's rattles. Lyra sat nearby, her silver hair catching the dim cabin lights. Her purple eyes followed every flicker on the console, curiosity undimmed by her frail frame. The workshop's greasy warmth felt distant now, replaced by the cold expanse of space. Lyra fiddled with a spare bolt, rolling it between her fingers. "This was in your thruster," she said, holding it up. Ethan glanced over, half smirking. "You're going to steal my tools next?" She grinned, assembling a small gadget from scraps. Her nimble hands moved with surprising skill, piecing together wires and metal. The colony's metallic echoes faded behind them, but her presence filled the cramped shuttle. Over synthetic rations, Lyra shared stories of her life on the corporation's luxury station. "It's shiny there," she said, her voice bright, "but cold. Not like your workshop." Ethan chewed slowly, her words pulling him from his guarded shell. He grunted, offering a rare chuckle. "Shiny's overrated. Grease keeps you honest." Her laughter, soft and clear, warmed the sterile air. A hologram flickered to life, Clara Veyron's sharp features filling the screen. "Stay low," she warned, her voice tight. "There are risks I can't explain yet." Ethan caught the strain in her eyes, the gaps in her story. "What aren't you telling me?" He pressed, his tone sharp. Clara's image wavered, then cut off. Suspicion settled in his gut like lead. Late that night, with Lyra asleep, Ethan hunched over a hidden pilot console. Its screen glowed faintly, revealing old medical files. His fingers danced across the keys, hacking into restricted data. The truth hit hard. Lyra's disease wasn't natural. A synthetic virus, implanted before her birth, pulsed in her system. His sarcasm burned into quiet anger. "Bastards," he muttered, glancing at her sleeping form. Lyra stirred, her breath hitching. Her eyes fluttered open, confused. "You were in my dream," she mumbled, words slurring. "Flying fast." Her memory flickered, fragments mixing with reality. Ethan knelt beside her, awkward but gentle. "Just a dream, kid," he said, tucking the blanket tighter. Her small hand gripped his, steadying them both. The bond tightened, unspoken but real. A sudden clang echoed outside. Alliance soldiers stormed the colony's docking bay, their armored boots ringing on metal. "Locate the biological asset," one barked, visors scanning the haze. Ethan's instincts kicked in. He scooped Lyra up, her weight light in his arms, and slipped into a ventilation shaft. The tight space smelled of rust, muffling their breaths. She clung to him, silent but alert. From a soldier's perspective, the mission felt wrong. One trooper, a father himself, hesitated as orders blared through his comms. He thought of his daughter, safe on a distant colony. The corporation's grip twisted even loyal hearts, sowing doubt. He shook his head, pushing forward, but the memory lingered. Ethan patched into Clara's secure channel, his voice low. "Talk, now." Her hologram reappeared, eyes glistening. "I didn't know the full truth," she admitted, her rational facade cracking. "They used her, Ethan. I failed her." Tears welled, but she straightened, devoted to her child. Ethan's jaw tightened. "We're moving," he said, cutting the call. The shuttle's engines roared to life, patched panels groaning as they lifted off. Ethan wove through Iron Haven's industrial fog, evading patrol drones. Lyra clung to her seat, her voice small but steady. "My heart beats faster when you're near," she whispered, Her purple eyes locked on him. The words landed deep, stirring something he couldn't name. They cleared the colony's edge, stars stretching out ahead. The shuttle rattled, but Ethan's hands were sure. Lyra watched him, her gadget now a tiny, functional light clipped to her overalls. The pace held steady, tension building slowly. Clara's secrets, the soldier's pursuit, and Lyra's frail trust wove together, pulling them toward an uncertain path. Ethan glanced at her, his sarcasm softening. "Hold tight, kid," he said. The stars burned brighter as they flew. The shuttle sliced through the void, its patched hull rattling as Ethan steered toward the Delta ore belt. Lyra sat quietly, her silver hair tucked under Ethan's oversized mechanic overalls, her fine dress long discarded. The cabin's dim lights flickered, casting shadows on her pale face. Clara's escape pod docked with a soft thud, its sleek design a stark contrast to their battered craft. She climbed aboard, her elegant nanofiber suit torn at the edges, her sharp features softened by exhaustion. Ethan shot her a glance, his eyes narrowing. Trust hung thin between them. "You've got explaining to do," Ethan said, his voice low, edged with sarcasm. Clara adjusted her stance, meeting his gaze. "I told you what I could." Her tone stayed rational, but her clenched hands betrayed her strain. Their argument flared quickly, his quips sharp against her measured defenses. "You call that truth?" he snapped. "Your kid's dying, and you're playing corporate games." Clara's eyes flashed, but she didn't retort. Lyra watched them silently, her purple eyes heavy with understanding. Ethan pulled up stolen files on the console. Data scrolled across the screen, cold and damning. The virus in Lyra wasn't a disease but a tool, designed to harvest emotional energy from Andari children. The corporation exploited its unique neural pathways for profit. Clara's breath caught as she read. "I didn't know," she whispered, her voice breaking. In a rare moment, her inner guilt surfaced. She'd signed the contract years ago, ambitious and blind, trapping her daughter in a corporate scheme. Her shoulders sagged, the weight of regret visible. Lyra coughed, her small frame trembling. Her silver hair seemed duller, her memories fragmenting. "Where's home?" she mumbled, eyes unfocused. Ethan knelt beside her, his rough hand brushing her forehead. "Stay with me, kid," he said, softer than usual. He shared a story of his pilot days, dodging missiles in a starlit skirmish. His voice steadied her, her breathing easing. The cabin felt smaller, their connection a fragile anchor. Ethan leaned back, his face hardening. "I'm Phantom Ace," he admitted, the words heavy. "Deserted because I wouldn't stomach their experiments." His quiet tone hid years of pain, the child test he'd fled still raw in his memory. Clara nodded slowly, respect flickering in her eyes. Lyra reached for his hand, her touch light but firm. They docked at a black market station, a grimy hub housing 200 dealers peddling illegal tech. The air smelled of burnt circuits and stale rations. Ethan bartered for fuel cells, his eyes scanning for spies. Lyra tugged his sleeve, her voice a whisper. "That man's lying." Her emotion sensing pinpointed a traitor among the merchants, his nervous sweat betraying him. Ethan confronted the dealer, his cunning diffusing the standoff without a shot. "Nice catch, kid," he muttered, ruffling her hair. Over a makeshift meal of protein bars, the group settled in a cramped station alcove. Lyra, now fully in Ethan's overalls, giggled as Clara recounted a clumsy corporate gala. The moment felt warm, a fleeting pause in their flight. Ethan watched them, his guarded heart softening. Clara's sharp edges dulled as she smiled at her daughter, their bond knitting tighter. Drones buzzed in the distance, their scanners cutting through the station's haze. Alliance pursuit had found them. Ethan cursed under his breath, hauling Lyra to the shuttle. Clara followed, her corporate poise replaced by urgency. "They won't stop," she said, her voice grim. Ethan nodded, already plotting their next move. From a drone operator's distant perspective, the chase felt mechanical. He monitored screens on a corporate frigate, tracking the rogue shuttle. Yet a flicker of doubt crossed his mind. memories of his own family stirring. The corporation's orders felt colder now, less certain. Ethan fired the engines, the shuttle lurching toward the Delta Ore Belt's asteroid field. Lyra strapped in, her small hands gripping the seat. "We're gonna make it," she said, her voice steady despite her fading strength. Ethan glanced at her, his sarcasm gone. "Damn right we are." The stars blurred as they dove into the belt, drones trailing close behind. The rhythm quickened, danger closing in, but their resolve burned brighter. The shuttle wove through the Delta Ore Belt, asteroids looming like silent sentinels. Ethan Cross gripped the controls, his eyes sharp on the scanner. Lyra sat beside him, her oversized overalls bunched at the cuffs, her purple eyes tracking the stars. Clara monitored the rear sensors, her nanofiber suit scuffed but intact. The drones had fallen back, but the threat lingered in the void silence. Ethan's fingers hovered over a hidden comms array, its panel tucked beneath the console. He activated the Phantom protocol with a low hum, sending a coded pulse to allies scattered across 3 nearby colonies. Static crackled, then voices broke through. "Cross, you old ghost," one teased, rough but warm. Vintage fighters emerged from the asteroid shadows, their hulls scarred from battles long past. Ethan's old teammates docked alongside, their reunion marked by quick grins and sharp banter. "Still flying this junk heap?" A pilot named Kale jabbed, his voice light despite the tension. Ethan smirked. "Gets the job done." Clara pored over stolen virus data on a cracked tablet, her scientific mind piecing together patterns. "It's the bond," she said, her voice low. "Only a true familial connection can disrupt the virus." Her words hung heavy, raising the stakes. Ethan glanced at Lyra, her frail form curled in the co-pilot seat. The idea felt like a lifeline, fragile but real. From Kale's perspective, as he adjusted his fighter's thrusters, Ethan's desertion stung anew. He'd admired Phantom Ace, but the betrayal lingered. Yet seeing Ethan now, protecting a child, stirred reluctant respect. Kale shook his head, focusing on the mission. The past could wait. Lyra brightened around the team, her innocence cutting through their gruff demeanor. She tugged Kale's sleeve, predicting a minor drone sweep with her emotion sensing. "They're nervous," she whispered, pointing to a scanner blip. Kyle chuckled, impressed. "Kids got instincts." The group planned their evasion, mapping a route through the belt's 500-kilometer sprawl of floating rocks. Ethan crouched beside Lyra, showing her the shuttle's control stick. "Push here, easy," he said, his voice patient. She mimicked him, her small hands steady. "Like this?" she asked, eyes shining. He nodded, a rare warmth in his gaze. "You're a natural." Her smile lit the cabin, a fleeting moment of hope. A scout ship appeared, its lasers grazing their hull. Ethan spun the shuttle, dodging debris with ace precision. Kyle and the others flanked them, their fighters weaving in tight formation. The skirmish stayed brief, relying on cunning over firepower. Clara rerouted power to shields, her hands quick on the controls. "Nice moves," she muttered, a grudging nod to Ethan. Clara shared more intel over a flickering holomap. "The virus isn't just Lyra," she said. "Dozens of children are infected, linked to Neo-Root's core." The scales settled over them, heavy but galvanizing. Ethan's jaw tightened. "Then we end it." His words carried quiet resolve, the team nodding in agreement. They docked in a shadowed asteroid crevice, the group catching a tense rest. Lyra curled up, her gadget light blinking softly. The team swapped quiet stories, their voices low to avoid detection. Ethan watched Lyra sleep, her breathing uneven. He adjusted her blanket, his sarcasm buried under care. From the perspective of a distant merchant on the black market station, rumors of Phantom Ace's return spread like sparks. He'd seen Ethan's deal for fuel cells, sensed the weight of their mission. The merchant turned away, unwilling to betray them, his own defiance a small ripple against the corporation's tide. The team scavenged parts from a wrecked drone, bolstering their ships. Ethan tightened a panel, his hands steady but his mind racing. The corporation's full force loomed, their pursuit inevitable. Lyra stirred, her voice soft. "We're a team now, right?" Ethan met her gaze, his nod firm. "Yeah, kid, we are." The shuttle's engines hummed, ready for the next leap. The belt's shadows deepened, but their path burned clear, the rhythm building toward a storm. The Delta Or belt stretched endlessly, its asteroids spinning in silent chaos. Ethan Cross piloted the shuttle with razor-sharp focus, weaving through jagged rocks that loomed like forgotten giants. Lyra sat close, her purple eyes darting between the viewport and Ethan's steady hands. Clara monitored the scanners, her nanofiber suit creased from days on the run. The team's vintage fighters flanked them, their engines humming in the void. Ethan's ace skills shone, dodging debris with fluid precision, the shuttle's patched hull groaning under strain. Lyra's cough broke the tense silence, her small frame trembling. Her silver hair clung to her sweat-damp forehead. Its shine faded. "It hurts," she whispered, her voice frail. Ethan's heart clenched, his sarcastic mask cracking. He reached for her hand, his grip gentle but firm. "I'm right here, kid," he said, his voice low. "You're tougher than this junk heap." Her faint smile steadied him, their bond a quiet anchor in the storm. A transmission crackled through the comms, intercepted from a corporate frigate. Ethan's blood ran cold as the data revealed a truth. His DNA had been stolen years ago, used to create Lyra in a secret project. He glanced at her, the pieces clicking into place. Her trust in him, her sense of safety, it wasn't a chance. Clara caught his look, her eyes questioning, but he shook his head. Not yet. The team shared quick stories to ease the tension, their voices low in the cramped cabin. Cal recounted a botched raid, his gruff laugh hiding old scars. Another pilot, Mira, spoke of a lost wingman, her words heavy. Their humanity stood stark against the corporation's cold efficiency. Lyra listened, her eyes wide, soaking in their resilience. Clara leaned toward Ethan, her voice soft. "I was wrong," she admitted, her controlling edge gone. "I thought power would protect her." Her gaze fell to Lyra, regret etched in her face. Ethan nodded, his own walls softening. "We fix this together," he said, the words a quiet vow. Their shared purpose tightened, a thread weaving through the chaos. An ambush erupted without warning. Corporate scouts, 6 ships strong, emerged from an asteroid's shadow, lasers cutting the dark. Ethan spun the shuttle, using ore debris as cover. "Hold on!" he barked, banking hard. Kyle and Mira peeled off, their fighters engaging with sharp precision. The clash was brief but fierce, explosions blooming like distant stars. Clara rerouted power, her hands steady on the console. "Shields holding," she reported, her voice calm under pressure. Lyra's breathing hitched, her emotion sensing kicking in. "They're angry," she murmured, her eyes distant, "but scared too." Her words guided Ethan's maneuvers, dodging a laser volley with uncanny timing. The virus flared in her body trembling, but Ethan's presence grounded her. "You're doing great, kid," he said, his voice steady. Her condition stabilized, her trust in him a shield against the pain. From a child's perspective on Neoroute, a distant station orbiting a gas giant, the virus's grip felt like a fog. A boy no older than Lyra sat in a sterile cell, his emotions harvested through cold wires. His faint hope flickered, sensing a shift in the system, unaware of Ethan's fight. The glimpse added urgency, a silent plea driving the team forward. They landed on a massive asteroid, its surface scarred by mining drills. The team scavenged parts from a wrecked scout, bolstering their ships for the coming storm. Ethan tightened a thruster panel, his hands quick but his mind heavy. The truth about Lyra's origins gnawed at him. Was he her father by more than choice? He pushed the thought aside, focusing on the task. Lyra watched him work, her gadget light blinking softly. "We'll stop them, right?" she asked, her voice small but sure. Ethan met her gaze, his resolve hardening. We end this, Lyra. For you. For all of them. The team gathered, their faces set. The belt's shadows loomed, but their path burned clear. Engines roared as they lifted off, the rhythm surging toward confrontation, the stars a silent witness to their vow. The Delta ore belt burned with chaos, asteroids spinning in a deadly dance. Ethan Cross gripped the shuttle's controls, his scarred hands steady as lasers lit the void. A dozen corporate ships closed in, their hulls gleaming with menace. Lyra clung to her seat, her purple eyes wide, tracking the flickering scanner. Clara worked the co-pilot console, her fingers flying over controls, rerouting power to strain shields. The team's vintage fighters darted alongside, their engines roaring through the silence of space. Ethan pushed the shuttle to its limits, weaving between asteroids at breakneck speed. The hull groaned, metal creaking under the strain. Hold tight, he muttered, banking hard to avoid a jagged rock. Lyra's breath hitched, but her voice stayed calm. They're coming from the left, she said, her emotion sensing sharp. She felt the pilot's fear, their anger, guiding Ethan's moves like a beacon. A laser grazed their wing, sparking across the hull. Kyle and Mira led the counterattack, their fighters twisting through the belt. Kyle's voice crackled over the comms. Got two on me, Cross? Ethan spun the shuttle, drawing fire to give Kyle an opening. Mira's ship dove, lasers clipping an enemy wing. Their coordination turned the tide, old skills flaring bright. Explosions bloomed, lighting the asteroids in brief, fiery bursts. Clara hacked into enemy comms, her voice steady, disrupting their channels now. Static flooded the corporate frequencies, scattering their formation. Her quick thinking bought precious seconds. Ethan grinned faintly. Not bad for a suit, he quipped, dodging another volley. The shuttle shuddered, but he held course, threading through a narrow gap. A massive asteroid loomed ahead, its surface pocked with craters. Ethan aimed for it, then pulled up at the last second. Debris rained like meteors, forcing the enemy to scatter. Lyra gasped, her small hands gripping the seat. That was close, she whispered, a faint smile breaking through. Ethan nodded, his focus unbroken. Just another day, kid. The virus surged in Lyra, her body convulsing mid-chase. Her silver hair fell limp, her eyes fluttering. Ethan, she gasped, voice weak. His heart lurched. He reached for her, one hand on the controls. I choose you, Lyra, he said, the words raw, desperate. Her trembling eased, her breathing steadying under his touch. The bond held, a fragile shield against the chaos. From an enemy pilot's perspective, the chase felt like a nightmare. He'd been trained to hunt deserters, but Phantom Ace's moves defied logic. His scanner flickered, Clara's hack sowing confusion. Doubt crept in. Why chase a child? He shook it off, firing wildly. But Ethan's shuttle vanished behind an asteroid, leaving only frustration. Another explosion rocked the belt, Kyle's fighter taking a hit. I'm still flying, he growled over the comms, limping to cover. Mira salvaged his position, her ship shielding his retreat. The team's unity held firm, their cunning outmatching the corporate firepower. Ethan pushed the shuttle harder, its engines screaming as they cleared the asteroid field. They slipped into a hidden nebula, its violet clouds cloaking their signal. The shuttle settled, battered but intact. Lyra leaned against Ethan, her breathing shallow but steady. We made it, she murmured, her gadget light blinking faintly. He ruffled her hair, his sarcasm gone. Thanks to you. Clara checked the scanners, her face grim. They'll regroup soon. She met Ethan's eyes, a silent agreement forming. The team gathered in the dim cabin, their faces worn but resolute. Kale patched his ship, cursing cheerfully. Mira cleaned her blaster, her focus sharp. The nebula's glow bathed them, a brief respite before the final storm. Ethan looked at Lyra, her small form curled in the seat. The truth of her origins burned in his mind, his stolen DNA, her creation. He pushed it aside, focusing on the fight ahead. "We end this at Neo-Root," he said, his voice firm. The team nodded, their purpose clear. The nebula swirled outside, hiding them as the rhythm surged, the battle's peak fading into a tense, determined calm. The nebula's violet haze faded as Ethan Cross guided the shuttle toward Neo-Root, a sleek station orbiting a swirling gas giant. Its shields hummed with stolen energy, harvested from children like Lyra. Ethan's hands tightened on the controls, his scarred fingers steady. Lyra sat close, her purple eyes bright despite her fading strength. Clara checked the console, her nanofiber suit scuffed, but her focus sharp. The team's fighters trailed behind, their patched hulls ready for the final fight. The station loomed, a cold monolith against the giant stormy bands. Ethan steered toward a maintenance hatch, the shuttle slipping through Neo-Root's outer defenses. The hatch hissed open, revealing sterile corridors that smelled of antiseptic and circuits. "Stay sharp," he whispered, leading the way. Clara clutched a data pad with her corporate codes, her face set. Lyra followed, her oversized overalls dragging slightly, her gadget light blinking faintly. The team moved silently, their steps muffled, tension coiling in the air. Security drones whirred ahead, their scanners sweeping. Lyra's emotion sensing kicked in. "They're close," she murmured, her voice soft but sure. She pointed left, guiding them past a trap. Ethan nodded, his trust in her absolute. Clara input her first code, disabling a laser grid. The corridor opened, but footsteps echoed, guards approaching fast. Ethan signaled the team, his eyes scanning for cover. The clash came quickly, a blur of close-quarters combat. Guards in sleek armor swung batons, but Ethan's team fought with wits. Cal disarmed one with a wrench, grinning. Mira tripped another, using a pipe as leverage. Ethan tackled a guard, his movements precise, avoiding lethal force. Clara shielded Lyra, her rational calm holding firm. The guards fell, outmatched by the team's grit. Deeper in, Lyra's senses flared again. "Something's wrong," she whispered, clutching Ethan's hand. A hidden turret whirred, but her warning gave them seconds to duck. Sparks flew as it fired wide. "Good catch, kid," Ethan said, his voice warm. Her profound insights guided them through sterile halls, each step closer to the core. A sealed door loomed, its lock tied to the virus's control system. Clara's datapad hummed, but the truth hit Ethan like a shockwave. He pulled up the stolen transmission, his DNA's role in Lyra's creation undeniable. "I'm her father," he said, the words raw. Clara froze, her eyes wide. "They stole from you?" she asked, voice trembling. Lyra looked up, her smile small but sure. "I knew you were safe." At the core, a glowing chamber pulsed with energy, wires snaking to dozens of child pods. Clara input her final code, her hands shaking. Ethan held Lyra close, her frail body leaning into him. "I'm here. Forever," he said, his voice steady. Their bond, chosen and now biological, surged through the system. Lyra's emotion sensing amplified the signal, a beacon of love against the virus. Lights flickered, and the core shut down, the virus collapsing. Alarms blared as Neo-Root trembled. From a freed child's perspective, a girl in a pod felt the fog lift. Her eyes opened, hope sparking as the system crumbled. She didn't know Ethan, but his fight reached her, a ripple of freedom. The other children stirred, their pods unlocking in a cascade of light. The station shook violently, walls cracking. "Move!" Ethan barked, scooping Lyra up. The team sprinted through collapsing corridors, sparks raining. Cal kicked open a jammed door, Mira covering their rear. Clara guided them, her codes unlocking an escape hatch. Explosions echoed, the station's core imploding behind them. They reached the shuttle, piling in as Neo-Root's shields failed. Ethan launched, the gas giant storms filling the viewport. Lyra clung to him, her breathing steady now, the virus gone. Clara gripped the console, her face alight with relief. The team's fighters followed, their engines roaring. The station crumbled in the distance, a monument to greed reduced to debris. Ethan glanced at Lyra, her silver hair catching the cabin's light. "We did it," she whispered, her voice stronger. He nodded, his heart full. The rhythm slowed, the climax fading into triumph. Neo-Root was gone, the children freed. Their fight wasn't over, but hope burned bright, carrying them toward a new dawn. The shuttle drifted toward a neutral colony, its engines humming softly after the chaos of Neo-Root's collapse. Ethan Cross leaned back in the pilot's seat, his scarred hands loose on the controls. Lyra curled beside him, her silver hair regaining its faint shine, her purple eyes bright with new energy. Clara sat nearby, her nanofiber suit discarded for a simple jumpsuit, her sharp edges softened by relief. The gas giant's stormy glow faded behind them, replaced by the colony's patchwork lights. The team's fighters trailed close, their battered hulls a testament to their fight. The colony, a modest hub of 10,000 souls, buzzed with traders and refugees. Ethan landed the shuttle in a dusty bay, the air thick with the scent of fuel and roasted rations. Lyra hopped down, her oversized overalls still bunched at the cuffs. She ran to a viewport, pressing her face against it, marveling at the bustling docks. Ethan watched her, a quiet warmth settling in his chest. The virus was gone, her strength returning. He'd chosen to be her father before knowing the truth, and now it felt unbreakable. Clara stepped beside him, her gaze on Lyra. "It's over," she said, her voice soft. The corporation's collapse rippled across the belt, its influence shattered with Neo-Root's core. Alliance ships retreated, their orders void without corporate backing. Clara's controlling nature had faded, replaced by a fierce devotion to her daughter. She touched Ethan's arm, a silent thank you. He nodded, his sarcasm buried under shared purpose. Freed children arrived at the colony, their pods recovered from Neo-Root's wreckage. Medics guided them to makeshift shelters, their faces lit with hope. A young boy, one of the rescued, clutched a tattered blanket, his eyes wide with freedom's promise. From his perspective, the world felt new. The fog of the virus lifted. He didn't know Ethan's name, but the man's fight had saved him, a spark of gratitude in his quiet heart. Ethan knelt beside Lyra, pointing at a passing freighter. "See that? Built tough, like you." She giggled, her voice clear. "Tougher than your shuttle," she teased, her gadget light blinking on her overalls. He ruffled her hair, his scars a map of battles won for her. The colony's hum wrapped around them, a steady rhythm of life restarting. The team gathered in a cramped cantina, their laughter cutting through the din. Kyle raised a mug of synthetic brew, his grin wide. "To Cross, the ghost who came back." Mira elbowed him, chuckling, and didn't crash this time. Their banter was light, but their eyes held respect. They'd part soon, promising reunions over comms. Ethan smirked, lifting his own mug. "Don't break your ships before then." Clara joined the toast, her smile genuine. She'd shed her corporate weight, her focus now on family. Lyra sat between her and Ethan, nibbling a ration bar, her innocence a beacon for them all. The cantina's warmth felt like home, a stark contrast to Iron Haven's grit. Ethan leaned back, his guard down for the first time in years. Lyra tugged his sleeve, her voice soft. "Dad breathes like a broken machine," she said, pausing. "But warm." Her words landed deep, a child's truth cutting through his walls. He met her gaze, his throat tight. "You keep me running, kid," he said, his voice low. She smiled, leaning against him, her small hand in his. They walked to the shuttle, the colony's lights casting long shadows. Clara carried a bag of supplies, her steps light. Lyra skipped ahead, her energy boundless. The shuttle's ramp lowered, its patched hull now a symbol of their fight. Ethan paused, looking at them both. Family wasn't just blood, it was every choice they'd made, every risk taken together. The engines hummed as they lifted off, the colony shrinking below. Lyra pressed her face to the viewport, stars reflecting in her eyes. Clara sat beside Ethan, her hand brushing his. "A new start," she said, her voice steady. He nodded, guiding the shuttle into the void. The stars stretched endlessly, a canvas of hope. Their family, forged in fire, flew toward a future they'd earned, leaving the past shadows behind.